Hello and welcome to the Success Showcase. I'm your host, Eric Lopkin with the Modern Observer Group. And with me as always is Chip Janiszewski from the Happiness and Success GPS. Chip, how you doing this week?
Doing great, Eric. We are in the middle of summer now, and it's almost July, and it feels like July. So
It definitely feels like July, and as warm as it is here in the Northeast, it's so much hotter elsewhere in the country. I actually saw a local newscast from the Portland area, and they had a typo on their weather map and said that the temperature in Portland was hitting 1,105 degrees.
now that's global warming.
Yes. Now, unfortunately for them, the typo was just a 1. It's still hitting 105 degrees out there, which is a lot warmer than they're used to. So, welcome to summer 2021.
Absolutely, yeah. We're in for a few hot days here, but I still prefer this to the minus 10 degree winter weather. So,
yes, and at least you don't have to shovel heat.
True.
All right. Well, our guest this week is Dawn Tedesco. Dawn works with digital learning and how businesses can use that. So, Dawn, welcome.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I'm the owner of Career Compliance Solutions, and we do a few things. We have an award-winning sexual harassment and gender discrimination online training course, and with the changes in the state of Connecticut and really national changes in the laws, we've been selling that to employees. If you want to train your individual employees or groups of employees for anywhere between $10 or $20 per individual, and that is all certified by local attorneys. We design and we develop online courses and virtual instructor-led trainings. If you have curriculum that you need to have either converted or designed, we could use our subject matter experts to create training for you. And right now, the big push is converting a lot of PowerPoints and those classroom presentations to a virtual format. So that's what I find the majority of my time doing right now. So
nice. Now, you were doing online training prior to COVID, but how did the lockdown and COVID change your business, accelerate your business?
Yeah, it's funny. Last year, everybody had said to me, this was in the beginning in maybe March, boy, you must be slammed. And it was actually the opposite was true, because everything had come to a standstill, and my contracts were, everybody was in panic mode and budgets were canceled, and sort of training went out the window temporarily. And so, I was in the same boat as a lot of other people, wondering when things would come back. And about the beginning of the year, December, January, it really started to pick up, and people started realizing, okay, this is it. We're staying home now. We're either staying home or we're coming back in partially. And we've done this for almost a year. We can continue to do this. So let's get our training up and running virtually. And so really this year has been, for myself and businesses like mine, has been crazy, and welcome the change. So I think people are realizing that they can do it. That they can do this same type of training, have the same interactions, have the same response from their employees, and still in a virtual environment.
Yeah, so I suppose that you're working with a lot of companies and kind of like taking over the way presentations are done and bringing them, into the virtual world. And because I do a lot of presentations too, but most of mine are in PowerPoint, and doing them on Zoom with a screen share and so on and so forth. I know there's got to be a better way to do it than that. And I would imagine that's what you do, is take those and, make them really professional looking presentations.
Yeah, there's been a lot of that. And right now it's a lot of creating the facilitator, writing the scripts, almost changing a lot of those PowerPoints into interactive online learning and in a virtual environment. And a lot of people are pulling people in to be facilitators in their companies that have never facilitated training before. And so you're converting a lot of people in operations who know their subject matter really well, but don't know how to to train that well. And so I've never even done a presentation before. So there's a lot of train the trainer. There's a lot of writing facilitator guides. And so people understand the nature of this business and how they need to shift their mindset and shift from the operations to a training role. So that's a big focus right now.
Yeah, there are differences between presenting virtually, presenting digitally, and doing live trainings. When COVID hit, I was actually scheduled to do an in-person training event that got switched to Zoom literally 2 days before. And I got on Zoom, launched everything, and realized I could not see the audience. Everybody had cameras off, and realized just how much I relied on audience interaction during my presentations and had to make adjustments on the fly. So what kind of changes are you seeing people have to make as they move their training online?
Yeah, and that's it. I think right now the push is to virtual because it's easier and faster, meaning easier to transition. But you're going to see and starting to see a lot more of online education, as in asynchronous e-learning. People log on and they take a course from start to finish, and they can log off and log back on where they left off. You'll start seeing that because you can really get into some interactions. You can do gamification. You'll start to see a lot of, and these are simple things like drag and drop, but multiple choice questions. But you are missing out on that group interactivity unless you're doing a virtual training and you're writing breakout sessions and you're writing out those same classroom type activities you were doing, whiteboard and parking lot. You have to try to convert to a virtual format if you want that interaction. And the other big thing is that training is not all day anymore. It was all day because a lot of times because of the cost of what it would take to gather a large group of employees, and you'd train them for 6 to 8 hours in a day, or a 3-day workshop. Those days are gone. Maybe temporarily they might be back, but the shift is more to a 2-hour virtual training a few times a week. So definitely, and in some ways it's better because the people can really keep their attention span much better on a 2-hour training than it is a full day exercise. So.
I want to step back to something you had just mentioned. For those of our listeners not familiar with the term, can you explain to them what gamification is?
Yeah, so gamification is a way of incorporating simple games, sometimes simple, sometimes complex, games to be an interactive activity to keep the user engaged. And so sometimes that's almost looks like a video game. It's the graphics and that show up, but it's presenting the content in an amusing way so that it gets you to really think. It gets you to really just break the monotony of the online training. And so some even the visuals, people like the difference in the visuals. And so gamification is popular, but gamification is costly too, I will say. So you don't see it a lot, but you will. You'll start to, as people start to really invest in online training, and their training departments and their budgets have to grow because of the conversion to online. You're going to start to see things like that pop up.
Yeah, as this has progressed, I mean, who are your best client types right now, and what are they using you for as far as types of presentations?
I'm doing a lot of work. I do some work with small businesses recently, a lot more because there's this, online revenue shift. And so business coaches and a lot of people who did face-to-face interaction coaching last year are now realizing that, okay, this isn't going to go away and we need to somehow convert our business. What used to be known as extra revenue, if you build an online course, is now known as, your mainstream revenue, or it's a shift towards that. So I am working with individual business owners, one-on-one, and they do like the virtual format. It's very inexpensive to do that. And then sometimes they're creating online courses too, eLearnings, and I'm helping them with that. So getting all their materials into an online format so that it can really expand their business. And what used to be a local business is now something that they can do anywhere, nationally. So people are really looking to different platforms and really trying to invest their time in converting their content.
Excellent. Now, over the past year or so, we've also, aside from all of the COVID effects, we've also seen a big push with sexual harassment training, with diversity training. Have you seen a big push of that going online? Are you doing a lot with that?
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that came into play that really aligned with COVID is that the state requirements for several states throughout the nation changed. And so most of the states, really Connecticut and California, but New York also, had a requirement of getting your employees trained under new regulations by just about May or March or April of last year. And so that obviously was extended because now companies who were meeting live were not meeting in person anymore, and they needed more time to get that content. And so there's definitely a shift for that sexual harassment training online. And this last year has been a big push because even if you look at the state of Connecticut, it went from October 1st of 2020, and they've changed the date and pushed it back 5 or 6 times now. The last one was May 20th. Everybody needed to have their employees trained in it by May 20th of this year. And so they've tried to give people time to either purchase an online program or build one and do it themselves virtually. But yeah, you're seeing that. You saw that in New York and you saw that in California also, where these dates were pushed back because of this. But yeah, absolutely. People are either they're renting conference rooms or they're bringing in groups of employees and showing them a video, or they're purchasing online training. So, but people are serious about it and they're getting it done despite, some sort of restrictions. They are getting their employees trained, which is great.
Excellent. All right. So we're seeing not just a change in how employees are trained, but you mentioned online learning is becoming a product in its own right. So how is that changing the businesses that are dealing with this? Both businesses that have relied on in-person events and also the businesses that are getting this training.
As far as, purchasing training, is that what you mean?
Well, those that are purchasing training, those that are creating training programs to sell, how are these businesses adapting their previously in-person events or even, one-to-one classes into something that's appealing to an online viewer?
Yeah, and sexual harassment is a good example of that because if you look at Connecticut alone, and the law has been in place to train your employees in sexual harassment of 50 or if you have 50 or more since 1993. And so we're one of, if not the longest, one of the states that has had that law the longest. And so companies with 50 or more has been training forever. And most of them have been doing the classroom training. Well, in the last year, it's gone from 50 employees to 3. So if you have 3 or more employees, you have to train them in sexual harassment. That's quite a bit different. You're not going to have a full-blown training class PowerPoint presentation, show up at a conference room for 3 people. And so you're getting individuals and companies that are one, creating these trainings like myself, but you're also getting them. They have to realize they're going to have to purchase for 3 people for a smaller amount of people. The other piece that's really been big, and so online accommodates that. The other piece is that now you need to train within 6 months of being employed. And so if you were only training once a year previously, you brought everybody together in a classroom and you had the same training every single year. If you hire anybody within that year and they might not meet that 6-month requirement if you have a year to your next training. And so again, online is a really good option because you can send somebody a link and they can take it at any given point. And it's very not a lot of labor at all for HR managers or these managers that have to get people trained. And so that's where the online component has really come in. Frequency, and then also the number of employees that have to be trained. And so you are seeing a big shift to online. And even the state provided course are videos. There's 7 videos that you can show to a large group of employees at once, or they can watch them individually. So even the state provided programs now are not classroom training. And that's in Connecticut, New York, and California. So
yeah, these online trainings are really a boon to smaller businesses. I mean, if you only have 3 employees, having to do this, within 6 months of hiring for each of them in person, that becomes burdensome for a small business, but it's a lot easier for them to comply if they've got the online training.
Yeah, absolutely. And in California, it's the same thing. They went from 50 to 5. So you have 5 or more employees, you have to be trained. And what a lot of people were doing previously is if they did not have an HR manager or a program that was qualified, then they were hiring an attorney to come in and doing a classroom training. Well, those attorneys still do virtual now, and they charge anywhere from $65 to $85 a person. But you're not going to, and they're doing classes, but you're not going to hire an attorney for one individual. So you're going to, you're bringing it in for your business, or you're not bringing it at all. So really, it's a great advantage when you've got an online opportunity that you can just purchase for one person. And a lot of these online companies, where it used to be a minimum of 25 to purchase, are now accommodating these states with 3 or 5 employee requirements.
Have you been doing any, let's call it operations training, where companies had the shift from people coming to work to working at home? And I would imagine by putting together operations manuals and the training and so on and so forth, it probably helps the remote employees work. And to me, it would be more efficient way to train people, just like the sexual harassment seminars and these other things. Have you been working with companies doing that, helping them to put together their training at home, work at home programs for their employees that have to work at home?
Yeah, I actually am working with a large waste disposal company in New York right now, who is, for the very first time, putting a training online, their orientation online, because now they have brought everybody. They have 8 or 9 locations in New York. They've brought everybody for orientation as a group to one location in a classroom setting. And now they're realizing, okay, that might not work anymore. And so we're in the process of converting that orientation so that they will take a number of, now these are employees that are out in the field because they work for a waste disposal company. So they will take some hands-on training that will be presented still in a location, one of their facilities per department. But then the rest of it will be entirely online, that they will take from either provided computer there or even tablets. You're seeing a lot of people who work remotely are now using tablets issued by the company for that type of training. So yeah, so here's something that's, it's an orientation. It's not a state requirement, and it's not something they have to get done right away, but they were already on top of, let's make this change right now. So.
Yeah, and I'm thinking just normal business functions that you do on a day-to-day basis that you have training for, putting it together in manual format and having a training session online that people can access makes things a whole lot more efficient and a lot easier to track. So I would imagine that you're probably just scratching the surface with the way things are going to be that way. At least that's the way I'm looking at it.
Yeah, I think so. And I think for digital communication in general, managers who had maybe operations meetings with a department, whether it be sales or whatever their staff was, a lot of companies are switching to like a Brain Shark. If you've heard of Brain Shark, it really is just short audio bursts, really, of communicating. It could be video also, of communicating. So it's almost like a video, a PowerPoint turned into a video, and really short bursts and sending those out. So it's almost like training tutorials, but these tools are used so that it's very easy, and people without a training background can use them themselves on a daily basis. So you are seeing a lot of that.
So how has the types of training changed? I mean, I remember when I was in corporate, the biggest training thing was safety. This has changed a little bit if you're working out of your own home rather than a communal area. So what other kinds of trends are you seeing in changes towards online learning?
Well, microlearning has become really big in the last, and that's a very popular term in the last, I'd say, 3 to 4 years. And they're really short bursts of information, strategic, planned, and most of them are videos, but they don't have to be videos. But they're task based, and a lot of training has been shifted to that because it's easy to get out. You can put them on your own learning management system. You're talking about 2 to 3 minute videos on average, or you can even put them on like a private YouTube channel, and there's no cost to that. And so you're finding a lot of hands-on training getting converted to that, the strategic piece. Everybody wants to watch a video. Video is just the big thing. When you talk about video, employees that's the number one thing they want to do. When you talk to HR managers, they want it to be more interactive, and a video isn't as interactive as they hope it would be. And that's where you get into the e-learning piece and interactions and drag and drops and gaming and quizzing and things of that nature. You're not necessarily getting that with a video. So that's really the trend: short micro learning videos on learning for the interactive piece that you really are seeing employers want their employees to experience.
All right, so tell us a little bit about some of the projects that you've been working on.
Sure. I do a large array of projects. The last year I've been working on, for 5 months, I was working on a hospitality project for a large hospitality company, getting all of their restaurant training up to speed online. It had been, and even their 3-day orientation for their management training when you first get hired by the company, that's been converted to an online format. Again, they were bringing in people from all over the country for this training. And now, we've been working on this project about 5 months. It's just wrapping up now. They will not be having anybody at their corporate office at all anymore for training whatsoever. So I am seeing, some of that. I also am working, like I said, with business owners who want that additional revenue and putting their content online. And it's a much different type of project when you're working with individual business coaches and consultants. And they're great at subject matter experts at their product, but they have no idea on how to get things transferred to online. And they sometimes don't know how to write a course where you need to really match the content to the objectives. And so I help even with the content prep, I'll help at that level with individual business owners. And the medium, really how the tools to provide, what's the best way to get it out there, what's not going to cost me a year without having any course sales that I'm going to be paying a platform fee for, things of that nature. I'm not into the sales and marketing piece of it, but we talk a little bit about, what's the best way to launch. Should it be live? Should I be involved as a business owner? Should it be something that people can just log on to whenever they want to? So I do talk about format a lot. And so, I either work with large corporations building on a project with, as many as 8 other designers like myself, or I work by myself working one-on-one with either small business owners or even just smaller companies that are trying to train, 2 to 500 employees. And I work one-on-one building courses for them. So.
Yeah, it sounds like, looking at your website, you have a BA in hospitality business, an MS in labor relationships, certificate in industrial design, instructional design. Instructional design, to me, really ties this whole thing together. And I can imagine that that's something that you really have going for you, is that background.
Yeah, the operations piece in hospitality, I do end up getting a lot of work because of that. So I did do a lot of training just being involved. I was in hospitality management for over 20 years. I worked in a few different types of, mostly restaurants. I was a district manager for Brugger's Bagels. I ran large food service accounts, 2 colleges, and I was in healthcare for a little bit also. And yeah, that background is, I had to do a lot of training for employees, and mostly staffs of 200 to 300 people. So that is where my love of training came, except I did not want to travel. And many people who trained full time at that point were presenters and full time travel. And so the online component and going in and getting my instructional design, really learning how to convert that content to an online format, that's really helped me with the subject matter of hospitality and just business in general. So I do write a lot of training programs also, and not everybody does that. A lot of people are just into the development piece of converting a course to online, putting it in an e-learning authoring tool. But I actually do a lot of content creation because of my business background too. So yeah, you are right about that.
That's fantastic. And we're actually coming up on the end of our time. So if somebody wants to get a hold of you, utilize your services, how can they do so?
Yeah, my website is c3elearning.com. My Career Compliance Solutions is my business name. They can, my email is through my website is probably the best way. You could also see samples of my work on my website also. So if you wanted to see some of the types of projects I work on, that's probably the best way to do it.
Great. So Chip, what do you think is the big takeaway for this week for our listeners?
Well, it's so important to play to your strengths and to get help with whatever else you need help with. And in these changing times, I can imagine that working with business coaches is absolutely perfect, because there's a lot of us out there that have a lot to say, but we need new ways to do it and put things together. So, I mean, it's just fantastic that you're doing what you're doing. And, if there's any way that we can help you out, obviously we're the networking type and so on and so forth. If there's specific industries and things like that you think are great for you to target, let us know.
Yeah, no, thank you. This has been great. And, if you know of companies that still need to get their employees trained in sexual harassment, I have a very affordable online course. So that would be the best way that you can get the word out.
Right. I think for me, the big takeaway is how things are adapting. Digital's not going away. More and more things are going online. So even though people are, chomping at the bit to get back in person, to meet with people, that online segment isn't going away. And in fact, it's growing. And that's something that's important for people to realize.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be around for a while.
Right. Well, Dawn, it's been great having you.
Oh, thank you. It's been great to be here. Thanks for the invite.
You've been listening to the Success Showcase. You can catch us every week at xvadio.com/podcasts. You can also find us on the Apple Podcasts app, Google Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, and wherever you find podcasts. Remember, make this your best week ever and make next week even better. We'll see you then.